Hello everybody, welcome to another stream. So, what are we doing? We're evaluating Rust GUI technologies. Why are we evaluating Rust GUI technologies? Well, we need to build some GUI apps. What kind of technologies are we looking for? Ones that don't use JavaScript or like web things, basically. We want like native desktop-y style controls. Much like you would get in, say, something like Java FX or Eclipse or things like that, or Win32 and so on. But we want it to be cross-platform. And we're trying to write stuff in Rust. And we've been doing this a month now. We're not getting very far. Let's look at the failures to date. Okay, so failures to date. Okay, here we go. There's so many failures, I don't even know where to start. Okay, let's have a look at this one. Right, so what do we get here? Here we go. So we're trying to write just like an example tab document UI, right? Where you can have like a home thing and you can display some document with some state, and you can have another one and you've got a little slider which you can move left and right, and you've got some state that's maintained, and when you switch back to the other one it maintains the state, right? We also want things like themes, and we also want to be able to change the language, and we want toolbars, and we want various other controls, and we want forms so that we can decide what kind of thing we're going to create and so on. And this was the Visio one, and ultimately it failed. We tried in Floem. We got a little bit further with Floem, so ignore the font rendering issues, but we've got a form and we've got a drop down, and we can pick a directory and create a file. But this has got some issues. It did actually create the file, but it's not transitioning the tab. But we could go and open that file that we just created, and we can see it, and we've got some state, and we can open another file, and we've got some state that is maintained, as in the text selection, and it doesn't reload the file to display it and all this kind of thing, right? So this is kind of what we want. And we also want to be able to display images, thus, and be able to resize them and things like that. And we want to be able to create tabs, and we want to be able to close tabs and close all the tabs, right? Some progress was made with this, but there was quite a few issues with it, so we tried to use a different GUI framework, which was MakerPad. And we tried the same thing in this, and it was coming along, but there was just so many red flags, I decided to give up on MakerPad yesterday. So here we see we've got a home thing, but it's not showing emojis and so on. We got as far as loading the document content, and then I ran into some panics as soon as I updated the repo to the latest code, and then got frustrated with trying to fix that, and a bunch of other things as well. And the fact that it was now panicking was the straw that broke the camel's back, as it were. So we then set about looking for a different GUI framework to try instead. And we stumbled across Cushy. And I went through yesterday and updated my little spreadsheet, and I'll just paste the link to this in the chat for those following along. Thus, also the code that I've been doing thus far on these is on my repo as well. So I forked the Cushy one. So my Cushy fork is going to be here. But if you want to look at the other examples that I just went through, the code is on the appropriate repos on my GitHub. So there's repositories. There's my list of repositories. There we are. So we've got the MakerPad, Cushy, Floem, Visio, Freya, and so on. So we stumbled across this. I went through the list of things to see if it's got some of the requirements, some of the things that I need. We tried some of the examples out the other day. And one glaring omission, it doesn't have a drop down. It doesn't have a drop down. Like, so let's just go Java FX widgets, for instance. You know, stuff that's been around for donkey's years, right? These are the kind of widgets I expect to have in any GUI library, and I expect them to sort of look similar to these ones, basically. Not like some random weird color scheme that doesn't fit with any other color scheme on your machine. But yeah, drop down is, where's the drop down? Somewhere. This is the drop down. Well, they call it a choice box on here. In HTML, it would be the select one, right? But it doesn't have one of those. At least, if it does, I couldn't find it. I also had a quick look on the repo at the outstanding at the issues. Here we go. And I noted that there was a drop down. Or combo box widget. There's one of them. There isn't one of those. But, I vaguely remember seeing it add support for a drop down or something, but I couldn't find it. So if someone knows where it might be, then please do let me know. Because I wanted to use a drop down for this tab document example. It's got some of the other things that we need. It's missing some other things that I want as well. It doesn't have tree views, not that I could find. I couldn't find any splitters, the ones that move things left and right, you know, like splits a pane into two and you can drag it, you know, this kind of thing, you know, where you can resize it. Well, not that thing. Yeah, so we're going to delve into it and see what we get. Let's get rid of that. Get rid of that. So there does appear to be some pretty reasonable documentation for this, which was missing for MakerPad, which was the last GUI framework that we had a look at. And does appear to be some fairly decent API documentation. So it tells you about where it is, the widget trait, yes, and it tells you how widgets are created and rendering works and some details about focus and styling and themes and so on. So, you know, it's pretty good, a little overview there, which is good. It did also appear to have reasonable keyboard support as well. Where is it? Cushy. And to my delight, I was delighted to find that there's actually occurrences of this. There's actually occurrences of this. You'd be surprised at how many Rust GUI frameworks don't have any tests in them at all. Which just saddens me because like Cargo just makes it so easy to have like support for tests. It's not like you have to add anything extra to a Rust project to make tests work. You know, with Java and other things like that, and C, you've got to go, oh, what test library do I want to use? Oh, and then do a bunch of setup and all this kind of stuff. It's already there, so you know, just write some tests, and then you know your code's going to work forever. And you know that you've not broken it. So I was quite happy to find that there were actually some tests. There weren't many tests, mind you, but at least there were some. I also noted that the examples, was it the examples or the guide has got some source, and there's some mention of like automatic screen grabs of some of the examples in the CI system, which sounds quite interesting because that might be quite useful to look at some point. These things. So there's like a test for it. Happy days. We can perhaps even run this test. Which, you know, fantastic. Like it builds and it runs. It's just, yeah. So I'm happy to see that there's support for tests. It actually fills me with some confidence. MakePad did not fill me with any form of confidence whatsoever. Let's do another little example, a little test here while we're at it, because some of the other GUI frameworks I've been looking at has got like swathes of like unfinished code and commented out code in the repo. So let's just have a quick search for like comments. 115. So that's probably good in that I don't see any commented out code. I see comments that might be useful, but I don't see any commented out code. And if we search for // that shows you the API docs. So this is also good. There's, actually some. So yeah, great. Yeah, 131 plus matches, opening find window. There's lots. 4,390 dot comment lines. Happy days. Right? That's what you want to see. These 3 things just to check for when you look at any GUI thing just can tell you so much about a project without even having to look at any of the code. Search for #test, search for comments, and search for dot comments. Yes, very interesting. Keyboard navigation I was just talking about. Yeah, where was the examples? Here they were. So we had a quick look at it the other day. I noted that this login example had support for customizable ordering of the elements that you could potentially focus. And I was quite happy to see that there's some actually useful stuff here, which is good. Oh. 1 second. I'm getting interrupted by phone calls. Right, so yeah. But one of the things that were missing was the select and the drop down. Oh wait, hold on. Maybe there is one. Maybe it's called select and I was looking for drop down. Let me check. No. That's not really what I was looking for. Yeah, I did come across that the other day. So no drop down. Missing drop down. It's got other things like radio buttons and all this kind of stuff. So let's have a go at trying to create our example. What's our example, you're asking? Well, if you've been following along with the stream, then you'll know. But if you haven't, let's give you a quick recap. The example that we're trying to create, the requirements for it is this. So, I'll just quickly run through this because people like coming into the Cushy stream will probably want to know what it is that we're trying to create. So we're trying to create a multi-document GUI test case, right? Which has got a main window that's resizable, has got a toolbar with open and new buttons, and it's got a tab bar which displays the open documents. There are essentially 2 types of tab. There is a home tab and a document tab. But the document tab is agnostic to the kind of document that needs to be in it. Right, so the document can either be a text document, a form document for creating a new one, or it could be an image one. And if you're creating a new document, when you click OK on the form that's inside that, the tab should be replaced in situ, not removed and then a new tab added. It should be replaced without any visible artifacts that the user can see, and then it should be replaced by the document that the form just created. You should also be able to open files using a native file dialog. And there needs to be some state on each of the different types of tabs. And there's various bonus points, things like draggable dividers and things like this. Right? So we're going to have a crack at doing it. Okay, let's dig into it. So I've created a branch, and I've mentioned this when I looked at other GUI frameworks. I don't like it when the examples don't have a cargo.toml file, right? Because when I create my own code, I want to know exactly what I have to do in order to create an application that uses this framework, whatever framework it is, right? So if I pick a framework and go into the examples directory, and then I see a directory for some example, right? And then inside that I see a cargo.toml file, I can use that as my basis for creating an application. But here we can't do that because this toml file is used, right? But this has got way too much stuff into it, and I don't know which things in here I actually need in order to use this library. So minus point for that. Do I want to deal with finding that out now? No, I don't. Do we have to learn out how to fit a new example into the list of examples? Probably. Is there a hello world example? I mean, there's one in the guide, but no. You see, the thing is, my example is going to be more like a real-world application, right? So I don't really want to bundle loads of stuff inside the already popular, already sort of busy examples directory, because there's quite a few in here. It'd be nice perhaps if these examples were split up into categories, like one for the widgets and then others for different types of things, like perhaps animation related things or drawing related things and so on, just so that you could find the examples a bit more easily. So yeah, so I think what we're going to do, what are we going to do? We've got this. Yeah, we're just going to create a new one. We're going to go examples tabbed document UI like this. Right. Inside which we're going to put a toml file. Can I do a cargo crate? Well, yeah. Do I need to? Hold on a second. Maybe it's probably easier to use the UI to do it like this. Yeah, and now I've got my toml file, right? So I've got some dependencies. Yeah. Let's have a quick look at the documentation to see if it tells us. That might be a useful place to start, since there is actually some documentation for this project. So the book. There's stuff to do with widgets. Right, does it talk about the dependencies? No. Can we? Yeah, we can search in here. Hold on. No. Doesn't tell us what dependencies we need to add in order to use it. So I suppose we have to find out the hard way. So let's say, I don't know, Cushy. I keep doing K. Is it something like that? And we've got a source and we've got a main. Let's just see what happens if we try and compile this. Right. So it didn't complain about the dependencies or anything like that. So maybe that's all we need to do. I suppose we should probably have a quick look at the features. I did note that there's native dialogues provided by RFD. This. I suppose we can keep all those default features. They seem fairly reasonable. I think this is a font. It might be better if this was prefixed with like font dash, but I don't know. Tracing output we probably want, yes, fine. Okay, so we've got that. Now we need to know how to do anything. Okay, so main is supposed to return a Cushy result. Right, and then apparently you can get a string and call .run on it after you've imported this. So let's just see if that works for us. And that'll tell us at least whether the cargo stuff is okay. Okay, we're good. Great, we've got this. Now what? So let's try adding the toolbar. So I don't think we want that anymore. We need to create a window somehow and then add like a container to it, and then inside that container we want to add some buttons. Let's see if we can work out how to do that. Grid layouts, list stacks probably. Let's have a quick look at composing user interfaces first. No, that's not really what I want. Let's have a look at one of the examples. Let's look at that login example. Right, so what did it do? It created a field, created some buttons. This is kind of what we need to do, buttons. Into columns, buttons, it's got cancel, and then log in. So it sort of makes a button from it, and then you can do and then you can do another one. Okay, we'll give this a go, but into columns. Don't know whether I want columns. So you get a widget list at the end of this, and then okay. Well, let's see what happens. So let's leave this over here, and let's go home. Into a button. I'm not going to deal with any on-click stuff yet. I just want to get some buttons on the screen. I'm not sure about this. Okay, I'm going to do it, but I'm not sure about it. This and thing, because what I can see is the nesting is going to be a nightmare. Say you've got 10 buttons, like the 10th one, the nesting is going to be like really far in. No? Just because I know where that's going to go, I'm going to go home button and do it like this. Into button. And we're going to do a new button. And we're going to do open. And we want to close all. Right. So now I've got a bunch of buttons. I kind of want to put them in a list. So I'm just going to arbitrarily try going home button, new button, open button, close all button, dot into list, into columns. Can we do this? Kind of odd. And then in this thing there was this expand thing, right? And let's go expand empty. So now I've got something, I don't know what it is. I've got a stack. Let's say it's the toolbar. And yeah. Okay. Well, this seems fairly reasonable. Tool tips. Into rows contain width, pad, scroll, centered. What's this? Into layers. Let's just go dot run on it. Yeah. So it gets in a line when you do that. And then it's got a width thing here. Let's try doing a width. We'll find out. What does it want? Something that can be converted into a dimension range. What's LP? We're just, randomly trying this to find out how discoverable it is. There's various little exercises I'm going through this. It might not be obvious. It might seem a bit haphazard, perhaps. Hopefully it's not too haphazard and people can follow along. But I'm trying things, and if I don't immediately succeed, then it's not as discoverable as I need it to be or would like it to be. That's kind of the point. So something that's a dimension range. I don't know. LP inches. What other things are there? There's millimeters, inches. Can we have pixels? Point. Is there, let me search for pixel. No. Yeah, maybe things are scaled and you can't deal with pixels. Interesting. Yeah. Is there PX? Ah, there is PX, look. Into PX. Let's see if there's someone that's using PX anywhere. Yeah. So you can do it like this. Okay. That's not terrible. Oops. I pressed the wrong thing. Right, here we go. So width, let's go 1280. No. And then why has it got this like this? Oh yeah. Okay. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Okay, we're missing an import. That's not the end of the world. I think it wants a different expand. Right, so these are all, because this list is, these are all buttons, we can't do that. So how do we add an arbitrary type? Well, let's look at how you might create a stack. New. Yes. So I've had this problem with other frameworks as well. One of them had this dot into any or something on it for when you're creating a list of things that you want to lay out. Let's see if we can. Oh. Into widget list. Yeah. Do I go into widget or something on these things? What can we do with this? Can we make this list toolbar widgets, right? And now it's confused about that last one, right? So can we set the type of this to be something else? Like oh, is it possible? Let's see what happens if we try and compile it. Failing is learning. Didn't widget. Found button. Yeah, don't know. Yeah, how are you supposed to do that? Because a toolbar is typically made up of some buttons and then a spacer and then some more buttons and then a spacer and then some more buttons, or alternatively a group which contains buttons followed by a divider followed by another group which contains one or more buttons, and so on. So no matter how I sort of lay this out, like, you know, like these two would be in a group, this would be in a group, and this would be in a group. Right. So I still need to do something like this. Let's just run the magic into on this and see what happens. What? Yeah, probably not going to do anything. But maybe it'll infer some type. And it'll magically work. type annotations needed, you see. Yeah, it doesn't know what type it's supposed to be. Kind of what I thought. So this into columns is implemented for into widget list. And make widget list. Yeah. Because there was a make widget thing. Let's have a quick look at this. So here it's got an example of wait, it's converting both of these into buttons? Yeah. Because these are the same type. What I'm looking for in the example where the things in the vector or the list are not all the same type and there's some conversion that needs to happen. I mean, are these things make widget? But, you know, this make widget is a trait, right? So you can't put that in there. Widget instance. Maybe that's okay. Yeah. Let's just... I don't know, make widget, and you get a widget instance. Should I be doing this? It doesn't feel like I should be. Let's just see what happens if I do this for the moment. Well, yeah, 2. I don't really care how many there are. Okay, fine. Oh, it's going to moan at me. I don't really want to use a vector, but... Okay, so that does compile. Does it run? It does run. So I suppose we can do that then. It'd kind of be nice if there was some way that it could work that out. And I'm sure at some point someone will correct me and say, no, you should do it like this, and you know, that's fine. So I've got some buttons. Yay, we've got some buttons. Fantastic. Okay. Let's try and deal with tabs then. But first, let's extract this to a method. Make toolbar. Fine. Okay, so we made a toolbar. Okay, does it still run? What happens if we try and add a test? I mean, how do we do a test rather than having to run it all the time? This will be interesting. Examples menu. There's a test for this. And it's got this menu example. Yeah, you see, but I've probably broken that test running thing by having my own cargo toml file and a standalone thing. So I doubt we can use this. Yeah. Example build. Yes. Yeah, kind of what I thought. Yeah, okay. I think we might leave the testing to another day. Unless... I suppose we can do that. Can we? So what happened here? Initializing the event loop outside of a main thread is a significant cross-platform compatibility hazard. Yeah, I wasn't really expecting... This is in W init as well. What happens if we run this test? I mean, that runs. What's the difference here? Well, it doesn't work the same way. It doesn't return like a result and so on. It runs a closure inside of that macro. And then a line gives you a make widget. Don't really know how to do the test for now. We'll come back to that. It would be nice, but no. Okay, so let's now try and add some tabs. This is probably where it's going to go pear-shaped. If my experience with other GUI frameworks in the last month or so has taught me anything. Because there's tabs and there's tabs, right? There's static tabs, right? Which, you've got a static list of tabs. So maybe you're on a product web page or something like this, and you've got specification, details, other related items, and you've got this tabbed bit at the bottom. And the tabs are always there, and there's never any less than those amount of tabs. There's never less than 3 tabs, right? Some GUI frameworks are designed only for static tabs, and others others allow you to have dynamic tabs, where you can have a tab bar with no tabs on it, and you can add tabs to it and remove tabs from it. And they're very different, it turns out. Very different. So, tabs. You see, we've got this switcher thing. Let's have a look at this. I noted this. I don't see any tabs. but well, there's manual tabs here. Let's look at this. Right, so this is the kind of thing that I was just talking about, where you've got a list of tabs and they're always present, right? But you know, you click it, it shows you which one is selected, and then there's some stuff underneath it which is related to the current selection. You know, that behavior we want. This tab bar thing looks awful. I don't know. So I'm just going to show the MakerPad UI one again just for a moment, because this was the least sucky implementation of tab presentation that I saw. Right? Tabs, and you can have icons on them as well, and you've got a close button, and it doesn't entirely suck in terms of styling. Right, it sort of looks like a desktop app, and I'm building a desktop app, right? So I want things that look like desktop apps. So my IDE, for instance, that I'm using has tabs, right? They've got close buttons. So you hover over it, it's got a little X thing, and so on. Right? Tab bars also need to do other things as well. So a common problem that you get with writing Rust code is that you have a bunch of files all called mod, for instance. Huh. Okay. That's interesting. Okay, let's do it in another one. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Sorry. I pressed the wrong button. Mod. Right. There aren't too many files called mod.rs in this thing, which is interesting. But in most Rust projects, you get this situation. And then you have this strange problem where when you've only got one file and it's called mod, then it's fine. You can just display a tab that says mod.rs, right? But the moment you open another mod file, such as this one, you need to be able to display something else at the top in order to distinguish between the two. So the IDE, for instance, so it needs to know about the titles of all the tabs, and there needs to be some method of being able to adjust the titles depending on what other tabs are open. So the tab bar needs to know about other tabs. There's some additional behavior there which isn't immediately apparent. Anyway, back to the tabs. Let's have a look at this manual tabs. Okay, this looks interesting. Look, they're actually dynamically created here. Right, so this select thing, I don't really know what this select thing does. Let's see if we can ascertain that from this. We've got this new select. A selectable labeled widget representing a value. I mean, it seems reasonable. Fine. So, selected tabs. You see, I don't want any tabs. I just want empty tab bar. How do you make the tab bar empty? And then there's this dynamic thing here as well, which I know very little about currently. I don't know. So I need to create a tab bar. But what? It's probably going to be a stack. Let's see if we can create a stack with no widgets. But we need an orientation. It's going to be a column, I suppose. This is kind of weird to me. My brain is struggling with this orientation with rows and columns. My thought is that these are backwards in this. Because I want to create a row, but I have to specify a column. You see what I'm saying? So here, let me just comment this out. Right? Not that one. Hold on. This is why my brain is struggling. I've created a row, right? I've created a row of buttons, but I had to go into columns, which it feels backwards to me. I don't know. Yeah. It's kind of weird. That's going to be confusing. Okay. So we're going to say orientation, and then I want to create a row, so I pick column. Right? There might be other ways of doing it. Like other UI frameworks use the words horizontal and vertical. Just as a thought there. So orientation, where's this orientation used? It's used a lot. It's kind of weird. Okay, we'll just we'll gloss over that for now. Does this compile? Toolbar. And then do we have to do this thing again where we toolbar and then a tab bar dot make widget. Do we need to do that? Does this work? No. Let's say do we have to go into rows now to get a stack for this? Maybe. Yeah. Trait bound, any type and nothing. Do we need to specify .into on this? Yeah. How do we create a stack of no elements that we can later add elements to? Is what I want to know. Yeah, okay, well, perhaps there's something in the documentation. Stack. Well, that's not technically true, is it? Because you can call the new method directly because it is public. No. Hmm. No, don't know. Widgets. Let's have a look at this make widget list thing. Because it doesn't know the type of the thing that's in it because there's no type here. Perhaps we can specify the type of this to be a vector of what? I don't know. Make widget or widget instance. Do we need the into anymore? No, 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 no. Let's just put string there just to see what happens. A trait into value widget list is not implemented for that, but is it implemented for anything? Returns this type as a value. Who knows where that is going to be? So this thing wants into value widget list. I'm not understanding the all the different traits. Widget list. Oh, can I just create a widget list here? Oh, maybe I can actually just create one of these because this isn't a trait. Maybe I should be doing this. Can we do this? Oh, that compiles. There we go. Okay, we got somewhere. What happens if you run it? Does it crash? It does not crash. This is good. So can we set a background color on this now? Let's see what we can do with it. Style with styles. I don't know how styling works at the moment, but there's an example, which is nice. So you can go with. So you can have. That's interesting. I wasn't expecting that. Okay, let's just go with background color. No. It's kind of a bit weird with default background color. And let's just make it dark grey. But it doesn't like that. So when you go stack and what? But it's not a stack anymore when you do this. I don't really want to do the styling down here. I'm probably doing this wrong. Let's look at the documentation. User guide. Style. The style is a widget? I wasn't really expecting that. And then what is this? Is this a... Okay. Just working out trying to work out how you might set a background color. Not really great examples for background color. Let's look at this with style thing again, because I don't know, this doesn't seem right. Dot with styles, but it gives you a style back, but I don't want a style back. I said I wanted a stack back, but do I care that it's a stack really? I don't think I do. Perhaps I just don't care the type there, but it seems a bit weird to see a style, and I don't know like the order of this thing. Does the stack now have a widget in it? Bit confusing. Do we think it does anything? I mean, it might not even be visible, you see, so don't even know if it's rendered. Can you also go dot with? Let's have a look at this with styles again and see where this is used. With styles. Oh great, it's used by me and no one else. That's a bit weird. Like, am I no, in project. Nothing calls this method. That's not ideal. Do I just go with again then? Border color. Can we specify borders? Borderless? No. I mean, that's something else. Yeah, I kind of want to look at the implementation of the view to see how you might do a border on something. But wait a second, there was an example. Let's search for the word border. No. It's fairly common to want to be able to set a border on something. Let's just search for other things that I'm used to dealing with, such as padding and margin. Intrinsic padding, as opposed to any other kind of padding. Container. Oh, there's pad by, but this is on. So is it special then? In padding is actually done by containers? So is a button made from a container which has a border? kind of curious. Button. Content on click. Oh dear. You see, because I don't have anything in my tub bar yet, I don't even know if it's present, and therefore I don't know if the background color is actually right. Let's just say I want to make it the entire width of the screen. So we've got this Pux thing, but I don't care about that. I just want it to be like automatically take all the width of the screen. Do I need therefore a container? Width. Like, I don't know. Oh, I've lost the thing now. Books. Expand. Yeah, everything is a widget. I understand this. But a container only has one thing. So what's the difference between expand and a space? Always occupy the smallest size it can. Trying to work out if I want. Oh, we're supposed to be using Krita, aren't we? Trying to work out what I actually need here. Let's do a diagram to see if I can. Yeah. What's this diagram going to be called? It's going to be called tab bar. See, I just want a tab bar. I just want an out-of-the-box tab bar to use, and it just work, right? And I'm just in this situation where most of these GUI technologies I'm trying are just unfinished experimental alpha and don't have all the widgets that I need. So I'm trying to work out, oh dear, not that one, this one, whether I need to draw a box which has a stack in it, which then has an empty on the side. Empty. I think that's what I want, but I don't know. And then what is this? Like, what is this container? Because a container only contains one thing. So do I need another stack? A stack of a stack? Maybe? I don't know. And if I want to put a border on it, where does the border go? How would you... Yeah. Many unanswered questions. So... Oh, God. So I want to create a tab bar, which is going to be a stack. Right? And we're going to create a stack. I'm not going to do a width, and then I'm going to do a... And then what do we want? I want inside this stack. Is this what we're supposed to do? And then an empty. Oh gosh, where is it? What is it? This one. There's an expand, sorry, not an empty. And then I go, I want a row, so I pick columns. Right. And I wanted to specify a height on this, I think. But it wants a range height, and let's just say 32. Okay. But I've got nothing with the background dark grey. Perhaps the background is already dark grey. Let's make it red. Like I don't see anything. Am I specifying... Let's put the height on the empty and this on the empty. No. I just want to see if it renders anything. Tab items dot push, and then I don't know, foo into button. What happens? So I see this, right, but I don't see any red background or anything like that, right? Oh my god. What is going on with the resizing? What on earth? I'm just dragging right, and it's just alternating between two sizes when I do that. If I grab it from here, it's doing... oh gosh. right? And each of the tab buttons, right, they need to be able to be closed. Oh dear. And I'm going to somehow need to be able to reference the tab bar after I create it to add things to it. Oh dear. It's just, yeah, okay, fine. Oh. That was supposed to be inside here. So we're going to make it so that when we press the home button, we add a tab. We add a tab button, and we'll deal with the actual content in a bit. So we've got this home button, and we've got this enter button, right? And then we've got on click. Which probably allows us to do something like this. And we can look at examples of how this might work. And somehow we've got to work out how on earth to get to the tab bar element and add another thing to it. It'd be nice if there were some example apps, right? So some of the GUI frameworks that I've been looking at have examples that use the framework, right? But I've not seen any of those for this Cushy one. So I've no idea whatsoever how to do that. So it's move and then underscore and then stuff. What is this? And then what can we do here? Should we send an event? Should an event be handled by some event handling bit of code somewhere? What? Let's for now go println home clicked. It prints out home clicked, so you know that works. But how can we access this tab items? Should I be creating a widget for a tab bar? That's what I'm sort of asking myself at this point. Everything is a widget. Everything is a widget. Creating composable widgets. Label field. Uh-huh. Okay, let's just try it. Let's go. Widgets. Mod widgets. Mod tab bar. Right, struct tab bar. And then I guess it's going to need tabs. But what are they? And then active tab. But we've got this select thing, right? But this select thing is like let's look at it again. There was this manual tabs thing. But I don't have hash map of widget instance. Tab kind. Yeah, you see, well, dear. Well, I suppose this is going to be TK. Let's just do a mod in here. What do we want here? Tab kind. Home and document. I'm going to deal with the active thing later. So this stuff needs to move out of here, and it's going to give us a tab bar back. Somehow. Right, this needs to be public. I suppose, something like that. Why is it not? Oh. Okay. Now it might work. We need to import this, I suppose. Tab kind. Alright, so we can create a tab bar, and then we've got this code which needs to go somewhere else. Let me just paste it here for now. So it said that you need... Wait, what? You need to implement make widget for it. And what do we need here? So this has a form field, make widget instance. So it adds the two things together and calls make widget. But I guess, yeah, okay, fine. So it's basically essentially this, right? Is there a preamble or something? Prelude, that's the one, not preamble. I don't know. Stars, dimension, units, pix. But we haven't used self here. Make widget with self. But it found a stack. Do we go make widget on this? Now that's going to be a problem for this bit of code, I think. Oh, okay, surprisingly it's not. Right, does it run? It runs, but we don't have any tabs. So let's just say, I mean, how do we get the tab bar? How do we get the tab bar here? I want to go tab bar, add tab, tab kind, home. Right? But I don't have a tab bar. That's the API that we want. I don't know, pub bun, add tab, TK, and then at this point it would add a button to itself and then do stuff. But this tab still doesn't have any tabs in it. How do I go from one to the other? You know, let's just say absolutely no idea what to do about this. Do we need this TK generic argument here? Because what am I actually going to do here? Because I can't match on the TK to see if it's a home thing and then add that on it. I suppose we need to go get title on the TK thing. Tab thing, I don't know. TK dot title into button. And then it's going to need to be mutable. Yeah, I'm going to need to insert into this. TK and then the tab button. Something like that. But we need this tab thing. And it needs a function. Which returns a string, perhaps? Right. And I suppose then we can go impl tab thing. For tab kind, and just have a basic implementation of that. Right. But we've still got to deal with this. Let's see if the rest of it compiles. Right, so TK needs to have hash on it. Oh. But it doesn't yet. Oh dear, what happened there? We've got to derive hash and EQ at least. For that we need partial EQ. Okay, so the rest of it compiles. But how do we do this? I mean, what have we got to go on in order to work this out? Because all of these examples are just like one. Do any of them even have any logic whatsoever? So they're all just displaying things. There's no state. And this is one of the other problems I've had. It's trying to work out how you're supposed to use the UI framework in the real world. It's all very well and good just testing rendering and events and all this kind of stuff, but when you actually want to compose an application or build an application, you need a bit more to go on than just the examples that show you how you render stuff, how you create the UI. It's like how you use it is what's important. This one's got an app state. This might be more interesting. Because in order to work out who the winner is, you need to access some stuff. But I bet this is probably just... It probably just has on-click things which just update some dynamic matrix. Probably. Let's have a look. Cells option player. That's a bit weird. A vector option player. How does it know which cell was clicked? Oh gosh. Self.cells, yeah. This cells. so I see. So they're using a vector instead of like a multi-dimensional array. Fine. But this is it's only updating external sort of state. It's not updating the GUI itself. I don't think there's much we can gather from that one. Game, lock, play, row, column. Where does this row and column come from? Oh, square, right, I see. Right. And a game is a reference to a dynamic game state. Yeah. But do I need to record like a widget reference in a dynamic thing? Hey. Yeah. Let's see if we can find an example that uses like a widget ref or something. Was it a widget ref? Yeah. How do you get a widget to add things to it? I suppose one of the other widgets might do it. There was this switcher, right, which has got a widget ref. Returns a new widget, replaces contents with contents as a column. Source is updated. Interesting. How does it content invalidate when changed? Self.source is this dynamic reader. It's a widget instance. Switchable. Where's this? Hi, Acton. Yeah, so I'll just recap with what we're doing. We're basically trying to create a tabbed document user interface. I'll quickly show you the one we did in Floem, which is this one. And the idea is that you can add a home tab and you can see some stuff on it, and you can open files, and you've got some state, ignore the horrible font rendering, and you can open more files, and you can do this, right? And then you can switch between them, and you can open image files, and so on, right? And we also want to be able to create new files using a UI. Ignore the horrible font rendering in this. And it's supposed to be able to create images, and then this tab should change into the file that was just created. But at the moment this doesn't work and it's broken, so you have to close the tab and then open it again. And that's basically what we're trying to create. And I've been trying to create this same thing in 4 different GUI libraries so far. And with every single one I met with confusion and problems. So we're basically trying this in Cushy today. The full details of this are here. I can paste this in the Discord or something later on so you can have a look. And where we are at the moment is we've got this, right? And we're trying to make it so that when we click the home button, a tab bar appears somewhere here, which is currently constructed of these elements, which is a stack, which contains a stack of tabs, which contains an empty to fill the rest of the space, right? So it's supposed to create a new tab, and then later, I've not dealt with this bit yet, later we want something underneath it which switches to show the contents of the tab, right? But when you switch to another tab, that state that has been loaded should not be lost. It shouldn't have to. There shouldn't need to be expensive function calls to say load the file again, for instance, right? It should just switch between 2 elements or widgets or whatever without having to reload files. The purpose of doing this tab document example is because I'm creating planning software for pick and place machines, and then at some point in the future I'll be creating machine operations code. So the planning software, for instance, is you need to create, when you're creating a PCB, you basically need to populate components on it, and there's basically a flow where you say, I'm going to populate this PCB using these processes, one which might be used the pick and place machine, one which might be manually place components on it, and then you need to know which components go on it and how they map to the manufacturer and part numbers and all this kind of stuff, right? So I need a desktop app in order to do that. My desktop app is using the core of it is using Crux, and that basically has a bunch of events. And the idea is I'm going to write, and I already have a CLI for this, where I can just issue commands on the command line and it updates the project file. But I want to use the same backend, which is written in Crux, and then attach a GUI to it. But before I try and do that, I need to know whether the GUI framework supports the things that I need to display a user interface. So I want to be able to work on multiple projects at the same time. I need to cross-reference multiple projects at the same time. Ideally, I want to be able to pop out a tab into a new tab, or at least split it, so that I can see a previous project and a new project, so that I can cross-reference things like that. So it's a productivity app, which resembles sort of like a spreadsheet system. It's got a lot of common elements. It shares a lot of common elements. There's lists of components and things like this, and tabs and phases and all this stuff. So that's what we're trying to build. Where we are at the moment with the code is that I've got an event handler, and I'm trying to add a tab to a tab bar, but I don't know how to get the tab bar. Right, so the main method creates a tab bar, and I decided to create a widget for my tab bar, so that the tab bar manages its tabs and is responsible for creating the buttons. And the tabs are going to have close buttons on each one. They're probably going to have icons on them. They're probably going to have an underline bit to show which is the active one and things like that, right? So it's responsibility of the tab bar to manage its tabs. Yeah, so the way I tackle this, he says, is to create a dynamic vec tab struct that contains all the data needed to represent tabs. Well, let me show you what I did. So I've got widgets and I've got a tab bar. My tab bar's currently got a hash map of widget instances at the moment. And it's got TKs, and the TKs are some agnostic type which can be used to get a title. Dynamic map each that returns a widget list. Not entirely understanding where you're saying to create a dynamic vec of tab struct. Like, yeah, you see, what I don't want is one giant main app method, right? I don't want this bit of code here to know about yeah, I mean, it might be easy for you to whip up an example than type another. I mean, it's true. But the purpose of this is not really for me to get you to do all the work. The purpose of this is for me to learn how to use the system. Because if you keep doing it, then how am I supposed to learn? And am I going to be falling into the same mistakes that everyone else has made? And so on. So what's, in my opinion, what is needed is more details. I couldn't find any yet. More details on how you're supposed to manage the sort of state and interact with the elements that you've created once you've created them. More details on that. I couldn't find much in the documentation around that. So it says, yeah, sure, you can create all the stuff, right? Lots of stuff about creating things. But once you've created them, then what? I briefly read some of this. This seems to be like the Leptos kind of reactive system, basically, which quite a few of these UI systems work with. But I don't want a main method which knows about the details of the tabs. What I need is to get some tab bar instance and tell it to do something somehow. And sure, when you create this, it can be given some reference to some dynamic list or whatever. But how do I get to this? So perhaps we do something like a struct of app state. What I'm going to need is some documents at some point, and there is not necessarily going to be there's not a document for the home tab, and this is important, right? And you can have tabs or tab bar. So if you imagine there's a vector of documents, right? And there's going to be buttons, there's going to be tabs rather, which use documents, and the app state is going to have the documents in it. But the tab bar is going to have tabs in it, and the tab relates to a specific document in the app state somehow. But we'll ignore the documents for now, we're not there yet. So I'm not sure whether I want to wrap the entire tab bar in there. That doesn't feel like it's right to me. Like what? Yeah, I get the reactivity. So Acton is saying Cushy is designed around reactivity. This generally means widgets respond to dynamics being changed rather than users directly modifying existing widget instance. Yes. So in other frameworks, you basically have signals, and somehow this list of tabs signal gets changed, and therefore the tab bar needs to react on this and then re-render something else. And the dynamic thing seems to me like it's sort of like a signal, basically. So, you know, if I went instead of tab bar, just go tabs add tab, for instance, right? And then where do I get this tabs from? Is it from the app state? Tabs. And then perhaps a tab bar is created with tabs, and we pass that in somehow, and dynamic tab, a vector of tab or something like this. I've got this tab kind, so we can use that, I suppose. Can we go dynamic new, and then I just want to I'm sure I can use default there, but I don't want to just for this. I just want to see it. And then I've got this app state, and then perhaps we can go app state.tabs. And then what is this? Is it a reference to a dynamic of tab kind? And then a reference to a vec of tab kind, perhaps. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. It says if multiple places need to read and write the state, why shouldn't it be wrapped in a place that allows the state to be shared? Yeah, I mean, the state can be shared in this thing, right? So yeah, I think I'm on the right track there. So now here I've got this tabs. So I'll ditch this. I mean, tab. I'll leave that like that for now. And this was a dynamic vec of tab kind. Tabs. Is this a reference, or do we go tabs.clone here and clone this dynamic? Something like that, maybe. How do I add, how do I add the tabs to this stack is another question. Right, I've got a button and I can add it to a list of buttons. But I don't know how to do this. I guess there's probably some answers in this. There was this list thing. Yeah. But we still, I suppose so, make toolbar. So I suppose here we can pass in app state tabs clone. And then this is what? Tabs. So instead of doing that, we go tabs, what, and then can we modify it because it's a vec? Push, one of those perhaps, I guess. Yeah, we need to do that, that's fine. Let's see. So we can add things into a list of tabs, and the tab bar yeah, like I don't yet know how to tie this dynamic thing, tabs, and this stack to each other. Stack needs to be given a dynamic widget list. You update the dynamic widget list. Okay. So this tab items is already given a widget list, but it needs to be given a dynamic widget list. Okay, we can try this. Right. So the tab items is a widget list, but then this widget list, I'm guessing, is something else. Where does this come from? Should I be creating probably this widget list. Let's get rid of this. Oh, I see. Yeah, I'm not widget list. I'm not sure about a widget list. Because I'm going to need to access a specific tab. So, for instance, imagine you're in an IDE and you see an error message, and you click the error message, and it takes you to a tab, and which can take it activates a tab that's already open, and goes somewhere in that tab to a particular thing that causes the error message. This is what IDEs normally do, right? Like this. So what that means is that I need to be able to access a specific tab and tell it to, I don't know, become active or something like this, right? But in order to do that, I'm gonna need some kind of key, right, to the tabs. In other systems, I'd used a slot map. In other examples that I've been creating, I've been using a slot map. And when you add entries to a slot map, it creates a key. And when you add a tab, the thing you get back from that code is a key. And then if you want to access a specific tab, you can use that key to find it. If you've only got a widget list, how do you know which tab you're going to be looking at and dealing with? I'm not entirely sure. So tab widget list. Let's just go self.tab widget list. Tab items widget list. It needs to be a new dynamic one. Tab items. Let's just go self.tab items. And then let's do what you said, which needs to be a dynamic widget list. Oops, widget list. Right, yeah, okay. So he says it's not meant to be the source of truth of the tabs, it's just what the stack needs to display the tabs. Fine. And that's kind of what I had for tab buttons. Let's delete tab buttons. And we'll deal with this in a minute. But let's fix this up first. And I probably could use default. I'm just not going to do that just yet, though. Widget list new. I just want to be able to see it rather than just see default everywhere. So I've got a tab button, right, which currently is just a title, but at some point in the future it's going to need to be like a box with a that's a button, and then the button contains another button and a label, something like that, and an icon as well, maybe. So I guess we go self.tab items, what, and then push. Do we have to lock it? Tab button, I suppose. What happens now when we try and compile things? Try from TK is never used. Oh, this is supposed to be TK here. Tabs.clone. This is supposed to be TK as well. So did I do anything with that? Yeah, I don't remember. It didn't work. What did I do wrong? So I've got an on-click, I've got tabs, and I lock it. This tabs is a clone of this vec of the app state, and the tab bar is created by passing a reference to this. Oh wait, I'm not even calling this, am I? Yeah. So I added a tab. How do I tie these things to each other? Yeah. Like, I've got nothing that calls this. I need to be calling add tab. But I don't have. Yeah. I still need the tab bar. Should I also have tab bar here? I don't know. What? It just feels like I don't need this tabs here, right? Let me just rearrange some of this code. Let's just do this here. App state, can we do this? Because I don't really care about this. What I want is the make toolbar to have a tab bar. Tab bar. I don't know. I don't know. But then I'm going to have problems with that. Does it need to be... it's just no. Just no. No. Let me undo all that. Yeah, don't know, don't know. Yeah. Like, sure, I can push this onto it, but there's nothing that ties this to this. Is there a way of adding a closure to a dynamic that runs when it's updated that calls this? Not that I can see. Linked string with for each. Attaches a for each to this value so that it is invoked each time the value's contents are updated. Do we do that? Tabs dot. Yeah, you can't do that. How am I supposed to attach a for each to this to make it call this? Yeah. Yes. That's much appreciated. Thanks for trying to create a little small example. Let's just for fun go app state tabs for each whatever why I don't really want a for each time the values contents are updated, because I don't want to call add tab for every item in the list. I just want to know about the new thing that's added to it, you see, and all this should be done inside the tab bar implementation and not some random bit of code in the main method. Like, how do I tie these two things to each other? You know. Right, and then do some process of futzing around with this. Cannot borrow tab bars, mutable. Yeah, and then this is in a closure, and then I don't know, does this need to be moved? And then if I move it, then I can't put tab bar in the application state, and who knows. And it doesn't even want that, it wants use of moved value. Yes, exactly. Can't do that. This is garbage. Let's just do a commit at this point. Fix me how to call this when a tab is added. Let's just do a commit. Let me just push this branch up as well. And I'll paste the link to that. What is this? What's it called? It's called Cushy, that's it. Oh no, wrong place. No. Oh, I didn't add the... There's some unversion files sitting there. Main cargo.toml. Right, so this is where the code is currently living. I'll just paste that link in there. I'll paste it in Discord as well. Yeah. What to do? I kind of feel like I need to look at some of the other example widgets to see how they might work. Let me go back to what I was doing a minute ago. Let's try this. I've got this here. Let's go dynamic. I don't care about this tabs, we don't have it anymore. Toolbar is going to take a tab bar. And the app state is a dynamic tab bar of tab kind. What's wrong with that? Used after being moved, yeah. Let's just clone it here. See, I don't. What am I cloning here? I'm only cloning the dynamic reference. I'm not cloning the actual contained object, so that's okay, I suppose. I don't want to be doing this. I want to be going tabs.add. Oh, well, let me put that back. That's what I want to be doing. Let's rename this to tab bar. Right, that's the fix we dealt with, but the rest of it is probably all broken wrong now. So make tab bar, new tabs. I need tabs here. And that's going to be one of these. But this, honestly, it doesn't need to be in here, because that's an implementation detail of this. Really. I think it is anyway. And this is supposed to be a vec of tk. Right. Make widget doesn't exist for a tab bar. Yeah, tab bar clone. Yeah, we can clone the dynamic thing there, which is fine. Do we do that? Tab bar dot. Yeah. What's the problem here? Tab bar. Should this be self dot no app state dot tab bar dot lock dot make widget? What does lock need? Reference to self. Make widget needs it consumes self. That ain't ever gonna work then, is it? Can we clone it here? It doesn't seem right at all. Yeah, I don't know. What are we supposed to do? Consider implementing clone for this type. I mean, it doesn't feel like I should. It doesn't feel like I should be cloning the tab bar ever. I don't understand why make widget wants to take and consume self. Yes, that's never going to work. Is there not a... It feels like there needs to be some sort of version of this which doesn't consume self. Like, if I cloned it, what would it be cloning? That's just silly. I don't want to work on a cloned one. No, that's never going to work. It feels like there should be something that manages the tabs and then some other thing which gets turned into a widget. I have no idea. Yeah, we're just skipping all the hello world stuff to trying to use this UI and just dive straight into the deep end and create widgets, and we don't even know anything about this system at all. It's yeah, very problematic. Yeah, dynamic clones are cheap. I understand that the dynamic clones are cheap, but the tab... Okay, but the tab bar currently it only contains dynamics. So if it's cheap to clone those, then it's okay to clone the tab bar, right? But what about when I start adding selected item U size or something like this? Should this also be dynamic and then it's okay to clone it? And there probably going to needs to be other information, like whether it's locked, for instance. You know, you've got a padlock on a tab so you can't accidentally close it, or whether it's got an indicator to say whether it's saved. This is the kind of thing that you're going to need to add onto it. So instead of this tab kind going here, it'll be like a tab state and then of type tab kind or something. Just for shits and giggles, we'll derive clone on it. We can't do this because TK clone. Tab kind has not got clone on it, which is fine. We can clone. Yeah, eventually this is going to have a document key on it. Those keys are cheap enough to be cloned. But now we can clone it and call make widget on it, I suppose. But Do we need that on there? Maybe like that. Now what happens? Oh my god, we've got a tab. Example you pasted a second ago. Hold on, I didn't see a URL that you pasted. Hold on. Maybe the YouTube thing has held it. Dynamic clones are cheap. For an example I pasted a second ago. I don't see an example that you pasted a second ago, Ecton. Oh, in Discord? No. I don't know. What happens when you do this? Do we know why this behavior is happening at this point? Like, I'm moving my mouse like that. I don't understand what's going on there. It's pretty weird. And when I resize this, it jumps around like this. And there's this weird black thing going on at the bottom. Is that just because it can't keep up? You paste it on Discord now, yeah. Okay, cool. I'll paste that link in the YouTube chat now as well. There we go, so that everyone else following along can look at it. Let me review that. Thanks for knocking this up. In debug mode, it can't keep up, right? But why is it doing that horizontal resizing weirdness though? Like it sort of jumps around. Is it because I didn't specify? I don't know. I definitely wasn't expecting that behavior. Because if I did specify some resize capabilities, then sure. And if I didn't, then sure. But it seems to be doing something weird. Let me do a commit. I'll update this initial commit thing. There's a width 1024. Wait, hold on a second. For some reason I thought I was adding a width and a height there, and that's why I've got the range like that, but that does explain why it's broken. Let me fix that then. Yes, that's my bad. Yeah. Yeah, I copied and pasted that from somewhere else and adjusted it, but I hadn't fully grokked it, clearly. That was my bad. Okay. Yeah, thanks. Okay. So, oh, I see. So now you can't resize it at all, even though it's got resize indicators on it. This, if you can't resize a window, you shouldn't have these drag bar things, because when I see these, to me, it's like you can resize the window because it's saying that you can. So like a modal dialog that's not resizable doesn't do that. For instance, this one, like you've got the edge of a window and you don't get the hover over indicators if you can't resize it. So I've got a window that can't be resized, but I still get the hover over things. That is, it's wrong to me. Yeah. So I think I'm going to take a break. We've achieved some stuff. Let's make some notes. So what are we looking at? Cushy. Let's paste the link to this. Repo. Where's my repo gone? Where's the repo? Repo. That's the one. That one. Rust GUI framework. Docs. No, wrong URL. API. I didn't know, because you mentioned that you had like a CI server somewhere in something that I read. I saw there was like some CI screenshots or something, but I don't see a build passing status here, which would be nice. Like, one of these things. So on GitHub workflows, you have this kind of stuff, and it just does the cargo build, right? It'd be nice if there was at least that on the repo. Every time I don't see one of these little green indicators, it fills me with fear and dread as to what I'm going to find, and whether the author of any given project or crate cares about tests and continuous integration and so on. So I don't know, let's look at Surday for instance. Right, they've got a build passing thing. I wouldn't be using Surday if I didn't see a build passing thing here. Flaky tests. Yes, flaky tests are a pain. I agree with that. You just got to fix it somehow. But yeah, flaky tests are a nightmare. If you've got anything to do with timers, and I think I noticed that in one of the tests. Let me see if I can find where that was. I'm not sure whether I might be missing the point here. I think this plotters one, and it had this wait for thing, but this. I'm not sure whether this is saying the example should have called wait for with a duration of 500 milliseconds, or whether that's making this wait for 500 milliseconds. I don't know what this wait for is, whether it's an assertion or whether it's saying that it should wait. But if it's saying it should wait, then that might be a cause of flaky tests, because your tests on the CI server aren't going to run as quickly as the tests on, say, your local machine or whatever. So you always run into problems every time you see like wait statements in tests, basically. is the key takeaway from that, I suppose. But I don't know what the problem is. I haven't seen the error logs or whatever, so yeah, but I would need to see the error logs to help further, I suppose, then. Right, okay, it's not that type of flakiness, he says. Okay, let's make some notes and record some thoughts. Right, so concerns. No internationalization support. Happy thoughts. There's tests. Insufficient documentation regarding how... This is a recurring theme, this is how you're expected to manage application state. Yeah. Sort of missing into any when building problems. I guess this is problems. When building arrays or vectors of widgets. So in other frameworks, so one of the problems I had, I think you jumped on the stream a little bit later, but one of the issues I had was where I'm creating my toolbar, I'm creating a bunch of buttons. The problem I had was this, right? So what I wanted to write was I don't really know what should be here. Like any widget or something. That's what I wanted to write. I don't care that they're not all the same type. But I want a type that wraps any type of widget. Other frameworks provide this this ability. They basically just do this downcast stuff using any or something like this, and then cast it back to the right type later on or something using the type ID. Because this works when you don't have this in here. It says they're all buttons, but as soon as you add something that's not a button in there, then it does that. So it would be nice if there was some framework support to make it so that I don't have to call make widget on each one of these to get widget instances, because this is very noisy. I didn't like that. I'm trying to remember which framework did it. Let's see if I can remember which one it was. Was it Flow? Any view? It was this one. Any view. So this GUI framework, which is Floem, has a type erased view, and it's the same kind of thing for the widgets, right? Yeah, there's this any view thing basically. I think it was this. Interview, yeah. And then it's various traits to make that. No way. So he says that's what widget instance is, but there's no way for me to insert automatic conversion when putting elements into an array. Can you not create like a... I'm sure there is a way of doing something that's like, I mean, my suggestion was any widget, and then maybe you can have a conversion I don't know. Yeah, because I think it was in Floem you go into any on them. Yeah, and then you end up doing a similar thing. Anyway, food for thought. I'll let you ponder that one. But I ran into that as like I didn't know what. I didn't know how to add all these together to one thing. See any view in Floem. I keep writing it like that. What other concerns did I have? Missing drop down control. Need to spend a lot of time styling every widget to look like native controls instead of web-like controls. Yeah. Concerns I had about MakePad. Yeah. Yeah. Happy thoughts. Fairly discoverable. No DSL. Yeah. Let me have a quick look at the documentation again regarding this dynamic thingamajigamy. Where was it? The reactive data model. Yeah. Concerns. No. I mean, there might be some. I just don't know where they are yet. Okay, let's say haven't yet found some real world examples this would greatly help with understanding of how you're meant to use the framework in a real world application. So I don't know whether you're familiar, Ecton, with the 7 GUIs thing, right? There's basically 7 tasks that you need to do. There's the counter one, a temperature converter one, a flight booker one, a timer one, CRUD ones, and circle drawers and cells, right? So these are quite useful. They're useful in being able to compare one GUI framework and its way of doing things with another one, so that if you've got experience with one framework, you can then reference the 7 GUIs example to see how you do the same thing in a different framework. So it'd be nice if you had those. So for instance, Visio has some of those. In its examples, I believe. It's got some of these. Now, there are some issues with them, and they're not all implemented. Only 6 of them are there. Yeah. The example that I'm doing with this tab document example, what I'm seeing with loads of Rust GUIs is they're all like single window little examples which basically just do like something really trivial. But say you want to create a web browser using Rust, you know, you're going to need to have settings things, you're going to need tabs, you're going to need toolbars, you're going to need context menus, you're going to need this kind of stuff, these menus like this, and there's just like so much to like a desktop app that you need. Or even, you know, if you just try and recreate the notepad in Windows 11, for instance, as an example, right? It's got common GUI things that you need. It's got status bar, it's got tabs, it's got icons, it's got menus, it's got settings, it's got various different controls that you can use, it's got search and replace things, you know, dialogues, modals, all this kind of stuff, right? Real world example. Or, you know, like something like calc, for instance. It's not particularly helpful. Everyone can write a calculator in every GUI framework, but when you try and create something slightly more complicated, all of the detail becomes uncovered, shall we say? Yeah, or you know, if you've got like an application like, let's bring up this Krita application, for instance, right? We've got this. There's a productivity app, right? You've got multiple document interface with tabs at the top. You've got toolbars. You've got this kind of stuff. You've got sliders. You've got docs that you can pull out. This is the kind of stuff that is woefully missing in all of the GUI technologies that I've been trying recently. They're all woefully inadequate, and they all have a nice common theme. They're not, you know, because I looked at the Cushy ones, and great, you know, there's where are we? There's examples for all the different things, right? But, they're a bit, just the styling of them is a bit meh. It's kind of like web styling, and I'm trying to create desktop apps. Let me show you the MakePad one, because I don't know whether you've seen it. MakePad one. So the MakePad one has this UI zoo example. And this one is closer than some of the other ones that I've seen to like having like desktop-y type stuff. Yeah, I understand everything is new. I don't know also whether you're familiar. I've mentioned this in previous live streams. But over 30 years ago, we were using Magic UI on the Amiga. Right? 30 years ago. 30 years ago. Let's see if there's a decent page on it. Magic user interface. Oh wow, you can even get the source. I didn't know they got that here. That's fantastic. No way. I didn't know they even had this here. That's brilliant. Let's have a quick look at this. Hold on. Is there some documentation for this? It'd be nice to see all the widgets. I didn't know they had this on here. That's really funny. Documentation and releases. No. Documentation and releases. Let's see. I'm trying to find. Ah, here we are. Like, this is super old. Where's the list of widgets? It'd be nice to find it. Let's have a look.
I'm going to feet progress. And neat.
No.
It used to be.
He mentions Qt. That's hilarious. It'd be nice to find it. Let's search for images. Oh yeah, here we go. Here we go. Right. 30 years ago, we were able to create graphical user interfaces with common desktop-y controls, right? And in 2024, what I've been finding is that every single Rust framework that I've looked at or tried to use has been worse than what was available 30 years ago on the Amiga. There's a statement. So, yeah. Anyway, let me bring up the UI, MakePad UI Zoo thing. This was the MakePad example. And it's got quite a few of the useful things that you need. It's got buttons, it's got flat ones that you can use in the toolbar. They're not like super chunky. You know, if you've got a productivity app, you don't want everything massive and chunky unless you specifically zoom the application or something like that. It's got fairly reasonable default stylings. Yeah, they're all right. So, you know, and it's actually got this, and it's got some tabs in as well. You know, so it's got a reasonable amount of like default stuff in it. Whereas if you compare that to, say, Visio, widget gallery. I did notice on your GitHub, on the GitHub repo, there was like create an example of the gallery of this thing. That would be useful just to experiment with them. And ideally have it with decent keyboard navigation, because that's one of the other issues I've encountered with most GUI frameworks as well. We'll wait for that to build. But yeah, magic user interface on the Amiga. It was amazing, it was. It was amazing. So Visio has this thing where you can go through all this stuff and look at it. And this is pretty useful. But again, this doesn't have any stuff to do with like application state. It's not like a real world application. It's just sort of like a demo thing. And it's got tabs, but it turns out in Visio, the tabs aren't really dynamic. You can't add tabs dynamically at runtime, and the way that it's set up isn't designed to do that. So if you're doing like a tabs example, then one way you've got static tabs where everything about the tabs are defined at compile time, and then you need another example for dynamic tabs, much in the same way that you have these virtual lists where you either know what all the elements of the list are at compile time, or you just look at a window of a bigger list and essentially the window scrolls up and down. Like the virtual list example, for instance. This kind of thing. So you've got lists and you've got virtual lists and you've got tabs and you've got dynamic tabs. Yeah. Being able to change the theme on the fly is great. One of the frameworks that I used. Let's see if I can find it. I think it was the Visio one. Let's see if I can find it. MakerPnP, this one. And this is the actual real world one where I tried using a GUI framework, and then I thought, no, instead of trying to actually add all this to my code base, I'm just going to try creating a tab document example within the repo of the GUI framework itself. But when I tested Visio, I was extremely happy to find that we could at least do internationalization, and there were the ability to specify translation files, thus, which work dynamically. So essentially every single label and every single item can come from an internationalization lookup system, which is excellent. So this create project thing here changes to be crea proyecto in Spanish. And they're all defined there. Oh, and it was so long ago since I looked at this. Yeah. And the way that it did it was, where is it? Like this. So that's how Visio creates labels that are dynamic. It creates a localized thing which essentially has probably like dynamic inside the localization, and when the language changes, then that control re-renders itself. And then the language comes from a tree, the view tree essentially, and it walks up the view tree to find something that's got a language on it, and then it uses that language in order to update the labels and so on. Yeah. So Visio uses Fluent. Is it not Fluent? Fluent it uses. Fluent. Is it this Fluent I18N? This one. It uses that. Yeah. So if you need inspiration of how to do some internationalization that works, check out the Visio one. Because I really need that. The thing with internationalization, I've mentioned this in previous streams, is that if you start building an application without internationalization support, and then you want to add it later, it's a real pain, because you basically end up having to unpick all the string interpolation code that you or any of the other number of developers might have written, and it just becomes a nightmare. It just becomes an absolute nightmare. So, yes. So yeah, not too bad today. So I'll carry on tinkering around with it, and I'll try and grok that example that you gave us. Thank you very much for that. And then I'll probably do a couple more streams on the beginning of next week, I think. But I'm getting worn out currently by looking at GUI frameworks. I've spent a month now looking at GUI frameworks. I'm not sure if you missed the start of the stream, so you missed the spreadsheet. Where is it? This, which is linked in the chat. I'll paste this in the Discord as well. There we go. Yeah, so I've been working on this for about a month or so. So I've had a reasonable amount of experience with a reasonable amount of GUI frameworks now. So you could say I've got some experience in this now. Granted, I failed at every single one and gave up on each one, but at least I've got some experience with them. There we are. Right, so that's gonna do it for today. So just remember, folks, it's only software. How hard can it be? We'll find out on the next one. See ya.